Welcome to the Siljander Podcast, where you will find actionable tips, tricks, and strategies for the millennials. In this show, we will dive into content that will teach you how to live with more ease, confidence, and authenticity. Here we will start with a foundation of compassion for ourselves, and then spread that compassion to others. We believe that this chain of acceptance and fortitude can radically change our families, communities, and beyond. And I am your host, Laura Siljander, yoga teacher, mental health coach, outdoor enthusiast, and lover of red wine. So grab your headphones and get ready to learn, grow, and to be inspired to live a life filled with intention and wellness. If you like the show, follow me on Instagram at practice_compassion, or check out my website, laurasiljander.com. I am so glad you are here, and I hope you enjoy the show. Greetings, Earthling. Welcome back to the Siljander Podcast. Yeah, what? So, the last two podcasts, I've talked to you about two things. One, drinking delicious, good earth, sweet and spicy tea. And two, the power of robing, or donning your robe that you haven't worn in months or maybe years, and just that softness around your neck. And we have now turned it into an action word of robing. And I'm doing both things right now. So if you can picture that in a hammock, drinking tea in a robe, giving you content. Life is good. All right, it's a gray day here in Wilmington, but let's make the best out of it. I have recently noticed a very common trend in my life and in my social circles, in my tribe, and I'm wondering if you're experiencing the same thing as well. Gosh, I'm talking so mysteriously, aren't I? But for real, I want to address something that's going on in my life because I bet you it's happening in your life too, and I want you to become aware of it. I think it's a great thing to lift the veil of so you can actually see what's going on and maybe why you feel certain ways. And per usual, this is just an offering. I don't even like to call it advice because sometimes I'm like, oh, try these strategies, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. And that sort of goes along the lines of this pod today. Let's talk about this. Have you ever opened up about something to a group of coworkers or friends or family or anyone in your circle or tribe or community, whatever you want to call it, and they all have an opinion about what you're saying, whether you asked for it or not? So let's do an example here. This one really just sticks out to me. And it was one of my coworkers who has a child in college, and she was wondering, when is it appropriate to turn your child's room into something else now that they're away at college? And every single person in the group had an opinion, whether they had a kid or not. And it went from, I know exactly what to do, which, hey, maybe they do, I don't know, to talking about when they were in college. And, it just turned into this big discussion. But then I looked over at my friend who asked the question in the first place, and she seemed a little bit overwhelmed because everyone had an opinion. Everyone had a story. And I don't know if we were actually even listening to each other because everyone was just wanting to say their opinion. No one asked her how she felt about it, or did she have any time frames where that she felt appropriate. No one asked her questions. They were just really quick to spit out their opinions and what they thought was the right thing to do. Does that sound familiar? You could change up your diet. Now everyone has opinion about your diet, and then the documentary that they watched, and this blog they just read, and everyone's got an opinion, and everyone's got a story to tell. And now the person who brought the topic up in the first place is just a little bit frazzled, and nothing is resolved. It was just a topic with a bunch of stories and a bunch of opinions that probably don't resonate with the person who asked it in the first place. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, let me give you it from a different perspective. Let's say one of your gal or guy pals are going through something, a breakup, whatever, and you are constantly giving them advice and they never take it. And then you get annoyed and frustrated with them because you're like, I'm done giving you advice because you never take my advice. Well, did they ask for your advice to begin with? And if they did, have you tried listening and seeing where they're coming from first? Have you tried to ask them follow-up questions, or are you just so quick to blurt out your experiences and your advice? And to be honest, a lot of people's advice that I hear, I don't know if it's so good. I mean, they're doing the best that they can, but sometimes I wonder, is this good advice to take anyway? Are they quoting sources that are actually decent sources, or is it from a friend of a friend or from somewhere that they read but they can't really remember? So what's the source? I mean, I guess I work in a college where oftentimes they ask, what is your source? So sometimes I wonder, is it garbage in, garbage out? Like you get not so great advice, you act on that advice, and it's garbage out. It's not a good outcome. Have you ever felt like you've been in the situation where you're outputting a ton of advice and not really listening and engaging where the person's at? Or have you been on the other end of it where you're even maybe playing around with an idea in your head and the person or people have a huge opinion about it and that it doesn't really sit well with you? Now, you love these people, or you at least care about them because you're talking to them, I guess, so I can assume that. So you know that their intentions are good. Their intentions are not to hurt you, they're to better you, or maybe they need to be heard. So I'm not saying it's coming from a bad place, but what I'm saying is, could we be better listeners? Could we ask more questions? Can we maybe not be so quick to give our opinion, like I'm giving my opinion about giving opinions? But no, for real, can we listen? Because like I said, I'm starting to observe this day after day about everyone's opinion, and I'm guilty of this too. 100% absolutely have given my opinion where I sometimes reflect back of maybe I shouldn't have said all that. That's the extrovert in me. Sometimes the introverts walk away saying, I wish I said that, but that's not our topic. If you want to learn more about introverts and extroverts, I could definitely do a podcast about that. But getting back to this topic of how we're so quick to want to fix the person's problem, to solve it because we care about them. But are we doing our due diligence? Are we really caring for that person in front of us when we are just spitting out all this information at them? And then we get frustrated because they didn't take our advice and they're still suffering. So why waste our breath? I feel like many of us have been through this. But I am noticing that we're not too quick to listen or to ask follow-up questions. So let's go back to my friend and coworker who said, I want to figure out what's a good time frame for when I should convert my daughter's room into something else. But some things that we could have done maybe instead were to ask her more questions. Well, what is a good time frame that you agree with? Have you talked to her about it? Have you had a discussion with your husband about this, with the siblings about this? Has asking these follow-up questions just to gauge where they're at. And maybe I'm a little bit better at this because I am a mental health coach and I've been doing counseling for a while. And so maybe I'm pretty good at prodding people and poking for questions. But I had to learn this because I'm an extrovert and I want to word vomit all over you. I mean, hello, I have a show. But can we ask good questions? And I think this is something that you have to learn, to ask good questions, even if the question sounds a little bit silly, but just to ask it. Because what you're telling that person is, I care enough to listen to you, and I don't want to give you the answer. I want you to feel empowered to make your own decision. And the way you can do that is through questioning, these open-ended questions, just to gauge where the person's at, or what they've tried, or what they're thinking. And if they've already answered all of those things, ask them more questions. An example could be, well, what do you think your daughter, how would she feel about it? Would she get upset? And then going down that avenue, because a lot of times the person does know what to do, but they just need someone to process it with, not to be told what to do. Maybe to do this takes a sense of curiosity about the person in front of you and the situation or whatever they're experiencing. It takes you to be curious about them and wanting them to feel empowered and safe and to process it with you. Isn't that what we want for our loved ones? We want them to make the decisions that are best for them, not because what we're telling them to do. I mean, we're not a parent, we're their friends, we're their family. Now, if you are a parent to child, that's a little bit different. I'm more thinking on equals, friend to friend or something of that nature. So next time a coworker, a friend, your sibling, your mom is discussing with you, and it could be the silliest thing. Oh, I'm changing up my skincare regime. Don't go quick into, oh, you should try this brand, blah, 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 da, da, da. But listen and ask questions and then maybe give your input if they ask for it or if you feel like it's appropriate. But pausing and asking them questions. See where that goes. It takes a little bit of training to do this, so try it over and over again if you want to. This is just a suggestion for cultivating a little bit of a deeper conversation and more meaningful conversations and making the person in front of you feel a little bit more heard and felt rather than spoken at. Another option that you can do if questioning doesn't really come naturally to you, you've practiced, you don't like where it's going, there's this awesome research done by Brene Brown on shame and vulnerability. And something that she tells folks to do is to simply sit with someone's pain. If they're going through grief, if they've lost someone, a breakup, rather than telling them what to do or can I do anything for you, because they probably have no idea what you can do, is to just sit with them in their pain and tell them that you're sorry and that you're there to listen. I know it may seem a little awkward at first, but if you've ever felt pain like that before where you've lost someone, then you understand that when someone says, what can I do for you? You have no idea. You would be doing it if you knew. But to simply have someone just sit with your pain with you and not feel forced to answer questions and to maybe just be there. That's a great place to start as well if someone's going through something really deep and tough. A big one to remember here is to try not to fix the problem because you're probably not going to fix it. It is just to simply shower your person with compassion, empathy, and know that you are a gentle and soft place to land when they need to process something. Sometimes being the right person is simply just doing that. As many of you know, I work at the University of North Carolina at Wilmington, and a lot of my students will tell me about advice that they were given from someone. And sometimes I ask them, okay, this person, do you respect them? One, are they living in a way that you want to live? Do your morals match up? This is a great way to avoid bad advice or bad suggestions, bad ideas. If you look at the person who's giving it to you in the first place, do you look at them with a sense of, I like the way you're living, or I appreciate X, Y, and Z about you? Or are they living in such a way that you don't like, that you don't appreciate? So sometimes you have to think about who is giving you the advice and do you connect and relate with them? Are they living a life that you believe in? This is a great way to avoid bad advice and to maybe look for those who, if you are searching for advice, you're going to go to someone that you respect and that you look at their life and say, oh, that's a life that I want to live. And that's also a good way to gauge, is this good advice? Or maybe I should pass on that. Okay, let's review. 1, perhaps become a little bit more curious, ask questions rather than launching into what your truth is and what you believe to be true and that advice that you heard from your sisters, moms, friends, brother. Listen more, ask questions, or simply just sit with someone's uncertainty and what they're going through. That's okay. And if you want to avoid bad advice, look at who's giving it to you. Do you want to live the life that they want to live? Are they where you want to be one day? All right, that's all for this week. Practice compassion, y'all, with yourself, with your friends and family, and then maybe that'll branch out to your community. Oh, one more thing, or maybe 2. I will be off the grid for a while. I am doing a study abroad with my kids, and when I say my kids, I really mean my students. And we will be off to Costa Rica and Panama for 10 days over spring break for an adventure study abroad, where we will be in the middle of nowhere for a lot of it, out in the woods and rafting and surfing. So you may not hear from me for a little bit longer, but I will maybe be posting on social. Just depends if I have Wi-Fi or not. And if you would like, subscribe, share this podcast with a friend. That would mean so much to me. Your support is everything. Thank you.